welcome to the Bible for Worship at St. Paul Lutheran Church on this seventh Sunday of Easter, when our scripture lesson is written in the book of Numbers, chapter 6, beginning at the 22nd verse. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, Thus you shall bless the Israelites. You shall say to them, The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So they shall put my name on the Israelites, and I will bless them." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. This is the familiar priestly or Aaronic benediction, known to many as the conclusion of Christian worship. It is a priestly blessing because Aaron was understood to be the ancestor of the priests of Israel. And as we heard, the scripture says that Moses was instructed by God to say to Aaron, "Thus you shall bless the Israelites, you shall say to them." And so there's this cascading sense of what is being said. God says to Moses, "Say to Aaron, thus you shall say to the Israelites." And the emphasis on pronouncing this benediction could not be any clearer. So it is a priestly benediction, and sometimes because of the instruction being given to Aaron and his priestly descendants, it's known as the Aaronic benediction. It appears in the book of Numbers fairly broadly as a part of the instruction for setting up the tabernacle in the wilderness, which in Israel's use of the Torah also was the instruction for setting up the temple in Jerusalem. And then comes this at the end of chapter 6, how the priests are to bless the people. And with the beginning of chapter 7, it says, when Moses had finished setting up the tabernacle. So this blessing really appears in a broad sense as the conclusion of the instruction for setting up the temple, the tabernacle. And then the scripture turns to the actual setting up of it. So it does appear rather as a concluding word of the design of tabernacle or temple worship. And so it has been used quite extensively within both Jewish and Christian worship for centuries and centuries. And not only in collective worship as communities, but in the Jewish family, it is also used on the Sabbath eve at the family table, particularly when parents bless their children. There is something exceedingly eloquent about this, isn't there? The way that it appears in the New Revised Standard Version, as we're reading it for this session, shows some of the background of the language, and that can help us to see how it is eloquent, even though I would suggest that some of the more recent translations, for example, in Evangelical Lutheran Worship, the Lutheran hymnal, bring out the eloquence a bit more and speak more in our contemporary language. But here, in this Bible translation, we can hear just how brief this is. Really just 3 lines each with two ideas within it. And there are some who have asked whether, in fact, the second half of each line is sort of the result of the first half. So the Lord bless you so that the Lord keeps you. The Lord lift up God's face on you so that God is gracious to you. The Lord look on you with favor so that you have peace. That's one way to look at it. The other is simply to hear 6 different aspects of the blessing. Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord's face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. It's brief, but it's so rich in what it has to say. It's also nicely balanced in some ways. It begins with these 4 simple words, the Lord bless you. And it ends with 4 simple words, and give you peace. And in between, there's a kind of crescendo that happens. You can hear it a bit in the English. It's even more pronounced in the original Hebrew language, where the first line has 3 words and 12 syllables, where the second line has 5 words and 14 syllables, and where the third line has 7 words and 16 syllables. So it builds, it fills itself out, but in that second half of the third line, it resolves back to the 3 words in Hebrew, 4 in English that balance the opening and give you peace. Some of the phrases in here, which we hear particularly in this translation, may seem a little odd. The Lord's face shine on you. What might that mean? Well, it turns out that in the ancient world around Israel, and even centuries before in the Akkadian language, this notion of the shining of the face means to be generous toward one, to look with favor on one, to give a blessing and a positive regard to one. Similarly, in the third line, the Lord lift up his countenance upon you. The Lord lift God's face upon you. In this case, already within the Old Testament itself, we can see how a downcast face and looking down is a kind of dejection or a disregard, where the lifting up of the face towards someone is a recognition, an acknowledgement, a conferring of dignity and of presence from the other person. So these idioms of the face shining and also of lifting up the face are familiar forms within the language in which the blessing was first written, and would not have struck the original hearers as in any way odd. They would have known exactly what was meant. And then there's the last line, a kind of tagline after the blessing itself is given. So they shall put my name on the Israelites, and I will bless them. To put God's name on the people. There's a fascinating detail about this that emerged several decades ago, but really quite recently in biblical scholarship and in biblical archaeology, when in Jerusalem, on the west side of the Kidron Valley, which is the one that runs alongside Jerusalem, and even the oldest part of Jerusalem, there was uncovered in an archaeological dig a pair of amulets. Now, whether they belong together or not, there were two of them, and they date to the 6th or 7th century BCE. So likely within the final decades of the Israelite presence in Jerusalem before the Babylonians exiled the Jerusalemites, the Judeans who lived there, the people of Israel destroyed their temple and sent them off to Babylon. These may even come from sometime just after that destruction. When people left in Jerusalem, they still have had these amulets. What's fascinating about them is that on one in particular, almost the exact words of part of this priestly benediction are cut into the silver of the amulet. And on the other one, words that are really almost, they're kind of a paraphrase of this blessing are etched into the silver. So it would appear that there were those among the Israelites, the people of Jerusalem in Judea, who actually wore this blessing on their bodies as a kind of amulet, as a token, as a necklace, so that the name of God would literally have been put onto them when they wore that. Is that what the writer of Numbers meant in saying, "So you shall put my name on them and I will bless them"? We can't be sure. Certainly, it can mean that by putting God's name on the people, this is a people that is holy to God. This is a people that is identified with the creator of heaven and earth. This is a people that in the book of Exodus, God said of them, "You will be to me a special possession, a royal people, and a holy nation." To put God's name on the people certainly identifies them, whether literally with amulets or in their own awareness and in their life as the people of God in the world, to be those who carry God's name. So for the Israelites in ancient biblical times, so also for us whenever we hear at the end of our worship service, "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord's face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace." Thus, the name of God is put on us, and God blesses us.